What is up, everyone? It's Hazed or Mikey or whatever else you want to call me. Just getting back home from SCG this weekend and was fortunate enough to make top four on Saturday on the 2K and top eight yesterday for the 1K. I had some incredible support from the community out there, and it's been surreal. It really has. And everybody was asking about some questions on the deck and some of the choices I made. So I thought the least I could do is throw this video together and have some more discussion about a deck that I'm having a lot of fun playing. If you see me looking to the side here, it's nothing against you. I just have some notes written down. I'm trying to get away from having to do a whole lot of editing. I'll try to bookmark the video so that you guys can kind of cycle through what you want to see. I'm gonna try not to make it too long, but we'll see how it ends up. First thing I do want to do is kind of hit off shoutouts. Number one would be Freedom Gaming. My team just helping me tune this deck, answer some questions, ideas, run some games to execute those ideas. Without them, I don't think I'd have the list I have. My local South Florida scene, some of the most incredible players around. I'm very fortunate to have an awesome community like that. And if you happen to be in South Florida, a little shameless plug here, and maybe you're not familiar with what stores are firing or stuff like that, or try to get connected to the community, I will post the Discord for our South Florida Discord. I'll post a link in the bottom in the description as well, so you can join that as well. And then lastly, the Blurple community on 20 Lore. These guys have provided incredible feedback for me to help me kind of refine the list with a little less amount of games by taking their sample size, combining with my sample size, and ending up with the final product here. So deck breakdown. So my kind of idea here is I'm going to go through the deck itself, go through some cards that are kind of talked about in this color combination, and then say why I did or didn't take those cards and what I ended up going with. So Blurple at a baseline, you're playing a purple deck, and you just want to try to be faster than all the purple decks. So I like our matchups into pretty much any other purple deck. I do like the matchup into any other purple deck, I would say. So basically beginning early game, you want to play some. My idea was to play cycle characters, cycle one drops, to be able to draw cards and help get to that late game faster. So your T-Pos, right? Because you want to draw cards, so you can obviously with T-Po you're going to play something from your hand. So drawing that card with one of the one drops is also super nice to give you a little more options. And then we go from 2 to 4 a lot of games, or we go from 3 to 5. So again, early game for Blurple is early ramp into just big bombs and drawing a bunch of cards. So ideally for me, when I'm playing the list, if I think my number one curve would be one drop, either Broom or Followers. If there's nothing on board, you draw a card. If there is nothing on board, keep it up. But if not, you draw a card with either one, play the Tipo, ink whatever you want to ink, and go to your four drops and either play a Rabbit, or I like to get the library out, depending on the matchup, and get Tipo in the library. That was kind of my start, and then you go into more ramp, and then into whatever your other big bombs are and whatnot. So those were the reasonings for that early game. Four Mickeys, four Crab, because although against other purple decks you want to be faster, you still can play. You have to play the board with this color combination, because if you don't, they'll just go super wide and you'll just lose. So being able to use Crab to help, make these small weenies have high attack, and also Crab with Elsa is insane because you can tap something down and take a really favorable trade that the opponent may not have wanted you to have. Again, I think most everybody that's watching this video knows the purple cards do, so I don't have to spend too much time on that for the core of the Merlins and Mims and why those cards are good. Mickey's obviously incredible in this deck because on 3 you're able to ramp and then able to sing friends the following turn with Mickey. That is an incredible way to fill your hand and keep ramping. So again, you're finding those big threats and then ramping to get to those big threats with the same character. So that's obviously a very good one. This would be a shout out to JDRR and 20 Lore and some of the other guys playing Donald. This was kind of a later addition for me to try him out, and he was incredible. Really, really was incredible. I want to add more, so I'm trying to figure that part out. Now we get to like the fun cards, right? Like this is the stuff that I think is probably a little different on my list than it is in others. Number one is probably Genie. I don't think a lot of people are playing Genie. Um, Everybody's asking me, what does Genie do? Why do you play it? I don't get it. What's the point? It's a clunky thing for people to answer, first of all. So like even if you played it raw, it's still like, okay, you have to deal 5 damage to this, or an opponent may sit there and not quest or not challenge because they're worried about their stuff being tapped if they can't remove this. So it makes it super clunky for them in the right matchup, right? It's all about timing when you play it. But if they do remove it, you have other bombs, so it's not like the end all be all. There's not a whole lot of efficient removal outside of Zeus is obviously kind of bad. Double Ice Walk into Medusa also feels bad, but those are like situational things. And then if they don't quest, and then next turn you play Elsa and you start locking them out, it's game over. You could just lock their board out and continue to do it because you can either bounce Elsa, you can play 5-drop Elsa, Ursula taps down characters. A lot of things just kind of keep them Genie locked. Madam Mim is more for, when you play these little weenies early, you can bounce them back and have this massive threat on board that is a very, very fast clock. So this card overperformed for me this weekend. I'll be honest, I want to add another, trying to figure out what I'm going to cut to do that. And then going back to Genie Ursula, this is the combo, right? Probably one of the highlights of my weekend was playing No I'm Not in top 8 and knowing he had a Maui in hand because he had bounced it, so I knew that he was going to be swinging into me with I had a Ursula out. I knew he was going to swing that Maui into Ursula next turn to put some damage on it, hoping he didn't have a crab in hand, but I went ahead and quested to kind of bait that Maui out. And then he did what I thought he was going to do, swung into it. So Maui's still alive, and he's going to be able to kill it the next turn. I follow up with the Genie, tapping and quest with Ursula, tap down my Genie, and now his Maui's kind of locked out. So that play, of course, he can bounce, and there's ways that it's not super beneficial, but you're kind of trying to read your opponent when you do something like that. But Ursula first into Genie can catch so many people off guard. Um, and again, they're not able to sing songs. Like that is very relevant. Obviously, Ursula is a great card by herself. The Genie just makes her kind of insane if you can do that. She could tap your own stuff. Hades is awesome. This list was playing Let It Go for a little while. I just think Hades better because you can ramp into 7 very quickly, and then Hades is bounceable. So obviously something bounceable, it's multiple Let It Goes. Like it's super, super great. Elsa, I don't think needs much explanation. Mufasa is another one that I think some people are kind of worried about. They're not super, they're torn about it, I guess is the best way to put it. Some people love it, some people hate it. I love it. And maybe I play it the wrong way. It worked out for me this past weekend, but I like to actually ink my mims early. So my 2-drop and 3-drop mims, I kind of like to ink them early and give me a good chance of getting those back late. So that when I'm keeping my goat and rabbit late game, those can be bounced after I played my Mufasa. So I know that maybe that sounds counterintuitive, like, well, why wouldn't you want to ink your bigger threats or blah blah blah? But I kind of like to keep them in my hand and just draw enough resources to get there, and then draw the bounces because all these big creatures have insane enter the battlefield effects or when they're played effects. And Mufasa is one of those cards that when he's played, most decks can't answer it the turn he's played outside of red and blue, obviously. They could be red, purple can be prepared, so it's a good be prepared bait. Or you played a board, let them be prepared, then play Mufasa, ink, play a Chernabog or something like that to kind of keep them from Tremaining or Beaking. Friends on the other side doesn't need explanation, I don't think at all. Um, we have the locations here. Now, McDuck Manor has kind of been in it for the beginning for me. I will say this last weekend, it hasn't felt super, super good. It's kind of on the edge of being cut. Library, however, was incredible. It's an incredible card because again, just the interaction with library and our 1-drops. So you could play a broom, put it in library, play a character, draw 2 cards. That's insane. It's insane value for a 1-drop. For 2 costs, you're drawing 2 cards. And then it's accelerating that lore game because a lot of the time we are the aggressor. So we're playing threats that the opponent has to be able to effectively deal with. So just that one little tick from lore can be massive as we're drawing cards because we're purple, right? So we can get towards the end of the game and just start go bouncing and end the game. That's obviously a line that we would want to go. So yeah, this is the 60 I took. Super, super happy with it. I think Manor is probably going to come out. I want to add another Mim and maybe another Donald, but we'll see. I'm going to still mess with it and really figure out where I want to be. We're at 15 on Inkables, which I think I never really had issues with ink. Again, because you're drawing so many cards, it's nice to be able to have those options. Drawing that's why purple's fun to play because you draw so many cards. Going through the matchup spread real quick before we go through some of the tech cards or some options that people have. The matchup spread I have over the weekend. So red purple. I can't remember when I played Dreams if it was on the player on the draw when I played him. I know that one of the games I think I straight up won because I ramped into Dragon, and I think that was game three. And he couldn't answer Dragon effectively as red purple, and I think I did it on turn five, turn four or five because I was on the play that game for sure, and it just was gaining so much lore he couldn't. The tempo loss was too high. Then the other red purple. So anything before the slash is Friday, after the slash is Saturday. 2-1 was against Kendall. No, I'm not. Phenomenal player. Like something I was thinking about on the ride home is I noticed him start to ink Flynn's against me a lot. And a lot of red purple players that I play against, um, typically, like outside of him, play Flynn. So I kind of have to keep playing to board and not letting them gain lore. But he took the approach, and I haven't asked him this, so I don't really want to assume super hard on why he did it. But I just noticed he was inking them a lot. I think he was using the one drops that he had to draw more cards so that he could just have those answers like be prepared, like Tremaine, like Medusa, to be able to answer my big threats late game instead of valuing the lore gain early because he knew he could win the late game if he was able to answer my threats. And I think that was his mindset on it. And if so, like that is a really good way to approach the matchup. I do think I think we're favored against red purple. It is a little play draw if you don't see a whole lot of ramp because if you ramp into stuff even on the draw, you can still beat them, I would say. But it feels a little play draw. The 1-2 was against Kendall again in top eight on Sunday yesterday, and he was able to go first that game. So all three games I felt were pretty close. I think there might have been one that it was kind of just the blowout. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think I remember one just being not close. This is our worst matchup, in my opinion. I think there's some discussion on this, but yellow green Diablo discard is brutal. It's a brutal matchup for us because if they ship Diablo early, we do not have an answer until 5 ink with Elsa. So if your locals are playing yellow green discard, maybe tech for it, add some Cruellas, maybe add Peter Pan Shadow, something like that. But it is a brutal matchup for us. I happen to have a lot of very good local players around me that play yellow green, so it's one I'm familiar with and I still suck at playing against. So maybe it's just me, I don't know. It might be a mind block thing, but who knows? Uh, on Sunday, I played against the yellow green aggro, so it was more daisies, merfolks, blues, Donald, stuff like that. Our deck is really well suited for that because of all the crabs and stuff that we do play. We play a lot of the 1 and 2 drops, so we're able to ramp into some of that better stuff while still playing to board. So that matchup felt really good for us in the aggro version. Green purple, I feel like we're also very favored in. Red yellow, my opponent on game two when he had the play kind of bricked out. I'll be honest. I think this matchup could be a little harder. I need more sample size with it. I haven't played it super a lot, and I even said it to my opponent. It's like, man, not really sure how this goes. But I was able to get it 2-0, and this was on Saturday. And then red blue. So red blue to me with Blurple is kind of a skill matchup, right? Like if you're playing against someone that understands how to play against Blurple, you could be in trouble. If you're playing against someone that is not familiar with the matchup at all, you could destroy them. The thing that is a problem for us is ice blocks, right? Ice blocks become super effective for us. And if an opponent doesn't know how good ice blocks are against us, it can be detrimental for them for sure. Once they start valuing ice block, it's kind of hard for us. That's my opinion. I don't want to say that I speak for all Blurple players, but that's kind of what I notice. Because if they get to the point where they're set up with multiple ice blocks and they've wiped your board and they have 3 or 4 cards in hand with Fabersham or whatever, we're probably never coming back there. We have to get to a range where we can kind of go bounce to just kind of get that last few lore gain to end it. But yeah, I think that is one of those matchups. If you're able to ramp super fast and they don't see ice blocks and you go into Mufasa or Dragon, something like that, it can be very hard for them to answer because again, if they don't have the ice blocks, their removal doesn't become as effective against you. Purple steel, I think we are very favored against. Um, these were two different versions of Purple Steel. So the first one was against more of a mid-range version with Chain Po, was an awesome deck. They both wanted to bounce Pete to do their thing to kind of stop effects from actions from happening, but we don't play a whole lot of actions, so it wasn't the worst thing for us to play against this deck. Genie put in a lot of work. A funny little interaction with Genie is if Smees are tapped and you tap your opponent's characters down, Smee still takes the damage with no captains out, so they can just sit there and die. It's kind of a funny interaction, but that was a pretty fun moment as well. And then the other version I played against was more of a aggro with Doc and some other cool tricks. I don't want to give away his tips in case he tries to take that deck to Vegas. It was a really cool deck though. He played Gray LeFou, which I hadn't seen, so it was pretty cool. Steel Song. This is a big one that I would say if they don't know the matchup again, you can kind of destroy them. If they start to understand how they win the matchup, it can be really hard. My first match, so this was on Saturday, was against the Candia, who I believe is the best Steel Song player. Um, and he plays, I don't know if he plays three or four Naveen's in the list now. I don't want to misspeak on what his list is. But Naveen is so good against the deck because one, it stops Ursula's effect from happening. They're still able to play songs. But it also puts a body down while singing a song. So they're going wider and wider while still developing a board, wider and wider while still playing songs that are effective at either removing our stuff or, um, yeah, really removing our stuff and going wider. So again, as Blurple, we have a hard time if they go further and further wide, and we can't effectively remove some of their threats. So I remember in game one and top four, we shuffled up and he was going first and he said I'll keep seven, and then at that point I knew I was like I'm in big trouble. I think he went like turn one Robin, turn two Lantern, turn three Naveen, whole new world, and I was like, oh, okay. That game was over. I think our match was over in about 10 minutes between both games, to be honest with you. But if they don't know the matchup, you can ramp into Mufasa, Dragon. Like there's so many things that Hades, even Elsa is a pretty big body for them to have to deal with if you're still playing to board with crabs and stuff like that. Elsa is also 5-drop Elsa, sorry, is also very effective against them because you have like a 3 attack character like a Donald or something. Tap down aerial swing. I want to play this matchup a little more because I do feel like this may be, I don't want to say we're favored, but I'd say it's a 50-50 matchup. All right, let me see if I missed anything here in my notes. Matchups over the weekend, cards of consideration. So I'm going to go through this list, and this is some versions of Blurple that have some of these cards in it, and talk about why I did or don't. I actually don't think I have any of these cards in the deck at the moment. Cogsworth can be really good. It also turns on Genie right away if they have a character. So if you play Cogsworth and Genie, you can swing him into something, ideally a location. So you can swing him into a location so that he's not taking damage, which is a cool play. I think Cogsworth may have a place. I think if you're playing Cogsworth, you have to play the Elephant Mim, and I don't really like Elephant Mim either. This would probably help Amber Steel, so if your locals are playing like a whole lot of Amber Steel, I could see Cogsworth being a good tech for that. Peter Pan Shadow, man, this was one I thought about because of yellow-green, and I ultimately decided against it because it's like, all right, do I really want to tech for a deck that not a whole lot of people are playing, although locally it's a pain in the butt for me, and I ultimately decided not. I love this card. I played it in red purple early in set like 3, set 2. So I like it. It's a one of my favorite cards, but it also helps because of the lore gain, right? So it's a 2/3 evasive with lore, 2 lore. But Brawl is still a card, right? Like we have so many 2 attack and less characters already. I just couldn't justify putting this in for just Diablo. Bell. So I had Bell in my list on Friday, and then again there was a 1K on Friday at SCG. So I played with Bell on Friday, and then before Saturday I took Bell out and added a goat and something else. I don't remember what my last ad was. I think it might have been in their library. Um, and I like Belle a lot. There are times where she is incredible, and there are times where she is just clunky and not good enough. And with the amount of Donalds I'm playing now, I have so many things on 5 that I just don't think it's worth having her in the deck anymore. There's just a lot of things I'd rather be doing on turn 5. Late game, sure, you can make Elsa trade. So like the argument is turn 6, she's pretty good because you tap down with Elsa, swing Elsa into something, heal Elsa the following turn, and damage something else, which that's really good. But again, I don't know. I could always come back to Bell because another one of my pet cards. Castle, not a fan. Tried it. I don't think it fits in the deck. Um, I like the immediate card draw off of library that you can kind of set up yourself. I know Castle is one of those, hey, answer this kind of things, but with how relevant purple is and the amount of crabs, I mean, this is just a crab fox away from being dead, right? I think that's what makes the library that much better is the 8 health. Oh, this is another pet card of mine, Pinocchio. I love Pinocchio. Played him in almost any purple deck I played before. I just feel like you're ramping so fast to 5 and it does what Elsa does without being, I mean, it's uninkable and Elsa's inkable. That was probably ultimately my choice on why to take Pinocchio out. I think you'd have to kind of change the whole deck if you wanted to play Pinocchio. You'd want to play like Rafiki's and early better attackers, maybe 2 cost Ursula. Um, that would be if you were looking for a Pinocchio kind of build. I think it would probably help with more aggressive decks, but again, I'm not sure it's needed because I haven't felt super, super bad into aggressive decks at all. So, but I know this is one that's talked about. Cusco. So obviously this would be your red blue answer. How do I get rid of dime? You're probably thinking. If they lay dime down, I probably lose, and you're probably right. If they lay dime down, you probably lost. It's another shout out to JD. He's the first one that told me that. If you're playing Cusco and they play dime, you've probably already lost. Which I agree with because it's very hard for us to gain that amount of lore that quickly that they're going to gain off that dime unless they're just randomly throwing it out. They could brick, but a lot of times that's not gonna happen. I have, and this I didn't put this on here, but I have considered Hideaway in Blurple honestly to target ice blocks early because again, I think if Red Blue didn't play ice blocks, I don't think that matchup would be bad for us. I think the ice blocks are really what make it kind of hard. Um, but again, if they don't know that and they blow up their ice blocks, you can just decimate them and win very quickly. So again, yeah, I haven't been sold on Cusco. Obviously, if you untap with Mufasa and you have Cusco out and you like double resist against steel would be pretty cool, but I think it's too cute. I don't think it's needed. Doesn't really affect our game plan. I think that was all the ones I had on here. The one I do want to add, because I know I did have it in the deck for a little bit, was Ursula. 2 cost Ursula. Sorry, it's a little on the fly change here. Um, so Ursula, it was good, but sometimes it wasn't. It was nice to shift Ursula on 5, and I was playing 3 big drop Ursulas with 3/2. It also helps against Steel Song because they can't get Cindy shot. But I don't know. I just think the deck is better playing Tipo and just ramping and getting to your big boys and making them answer those. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad card at all. And Blurple can be built in many different ways, which is what I love about the color combo. I think it's a very, very fun deck. I've had a hard time the last set and a half, I'd say, finding a deck that I truly enjoy. And this has been it for me. So I'm happy to answer questions about it and help you all decide on if you're going to take this deck to Vegas, um, what your build would look like and how it could help certain matchups. Like I'm all for that, man. I think it's a super fun deck. Um, I will say, and I had this in my last point here, is would I take this deck to Vegas? Personally, for me, I would because I don't know how many of you have played in the challenges, but it is a little roll the dice, right? You're playing a 2-round format. You could prep for yellow green like I did for Toronto and not play a single yellow green in 9 rounds. Um, it's the way it goes. So you can tech these cards and they can just be dead. I think if you enjoy playing a deck and it's relatively good, that's what I would play for Vegas, personally. I think it's the best deck in the format? Absolutely not. I would probably say it's a tier 2 deck. Um, Pretty solidly tier 2. Could you win a DLC with it? Absolutely. I think it's been proven by multiple people that have won DLCs. People like the yellow purple Mufasa. Like that wouldn't be thought of as a tier 1 deck, but they won with it. So you can't argue the results. Um, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. Hopefully it helps you guys out. Thank you for tuning in. I just like again, I can't believe the support that I've had. It's been super super fun, and I look forward to creating more content on this channel. We do stream, and yeah, we'll keep building Blurple and make it the best deck in the format somehow. But other than that, you guys take care and have an awesome day.